right, 0 to 60, take 2. Okay, got the Raptor on the dyno. We're gonna do our baseline runs to see where the truck is stock. Really, the only mods we have on here is we've got a muffler system, and we also have our VR tuned ECU flash. And of course, we're running our VR forged wheels with 37-inch tires. So we're gonna do 3 runs, and we're calibrating this in 5th gear to do our dyno pulls from about 2,500 RPMs, about 6,500 RPMs. See what we got for our first run. 359 wheel horsepower and 412 foot-pounds of torque. They're on 91 octane. It's about 100 degrees in here, so we typically will see a drivetrain loss with these big wheels, and on this dyno about 20%. Just did 2 runs. We're gonna do our 3rd baseline. Make sure we've got good consistent numbers to go off of, because the biggest thing to look for is what the delta is, what the difference between before and after the modification. So here's the final baseline run. Let's get to it. We got here, we got 456 and 582 with correction factor. So really we're about 397 and 507. So that's pretty good. We're at 400 rear wheel horsepower with these massive 37-inch Toyos and 20-inch forged wheels, and just about 500 foot-pounds of torque. So we got some goodies here from the guys at Garrett, and that includes this all-new front-mount intercooler. This is a serious core, so definitely really improve the performance on the Ecoboost. And right there, got a pair of turbos. So the reality of 700 horsepower is going to come true for the Ford Raptor project. Let's get these things out and check them out in person. Here it is. This is Garrett's performance intercooler upgrade for the Ford F-150 Raptor Ecoboost. Garrett is, as we all know, the home of probably some of the fastest vehicles in the world. They make all types of incredible products, turbochargers, intercoolers, and much more. So the Garrett intercooler is a direct fit for the OEM one. It is a 83% larger core than stock, which gives you an estimated 25-degree Fahrenheit reduction in temperature and a 30% reduction in pressure drop. Obviously, with these cast end tanks, this is going to improve the airflow over stock tremendously, and this intercooler is capable to support 750 horsepower, all while reusing stock bolts, hoses, and clamps. This, my friends, is gonna be an epic piece to the package. And before we even jump into the turbochargers, we are gonna install this and re-dyno it to see, does the intercooler alone add the power and performance, especially out here in Arizona's heat? Let's get this thing installed and see how it works. Got the intercooler installed, so now we're gonna do some after dyno testing to see how just the intercooler performs on the truck. Let's hit it. So we have our results here from the intercooler test. With the intercooler, we're at 390 and 494 foot-pounds of torque. And before the intercooler, with the stock one, we're at 376 and 475 foot-pounds of torque. You can see here, the dotted line is right from the test, and that's peak gains, but you can see we've got some good gains all around. So here we have 493 compared to 466. That's almost a 30 foot-pound gain of torque. That's very, very good. Top end, absolutely expect this because, you know, it's hot and it's not as efficient. So the Garrett intercooler made a world of difference. You can see here, for example, at 5,200 RPMs, we are at 380 rear wheel horsepower. Same RPM, we are at 337, almost 50 rear wheel horsepower gain. So as you can see, the intercooler did a tremendous job on giving more power to the Raptor. Next up, we're gonna start the turbo install. That'll be a little bit of a process, so let's get the truck over there and get underway. Up next on the road to 700 horsepower is these Garrett OEM replacement turbochargers. This is a complete turbo, not a remanufactured turbo. Just a huge difference in performance while using everything OEM. So this is going to include the wastegate, housing, impeller, all of it just to bolt right up. Let's open these and see what they look like. Here it is, the new turbo. These come as a left and a right side. It's a 0.60 AR. And it's got the electronic actuated wastegate. Everything's new. You can see there a nice exhaust fan. And these intake impellers look much bigger. About 700 horsepower capable. They come with everything we need. So the biggest difference here is proper tuning. And our VR tuned application using HP tuners is going to get this thing dialed after data logging. So let's stick to it. We're going to get here and do the install. Turbos are on, the intercooler's on. Now it's time to do some runs, do some logging, and get this thing tuned. Slowly creeping up there in power as we dial in the tune with the HP Tuners device and working with our partners here, getting the VR tuned all set up. We're already up to 636 foot-pounds and 474 rear wheel horsepower. So we're going to continue dialing in here. So we'll do several runs, really get it dialed, make sure we have good AFR, timing's good. And the goal is really to get about another 100 horsepower out of the truck. Now that we finished with the dyno test of the Ford Raptor with the new Garrett Turbos and intercooler core, let's talk about some numbers here. Now the truck was completely stock except it did have our VR Tune ECU flash. So our baseline here in our after number is just the difference that the intercooler and the turbos made. So the solid line is our completed number and the dotted line is just with the VR Tune. Keep in mind, this is on 91 octane here in Arizona, which if you do run higher octane such as 9300, you can do a way more aggressive tune. We are also running on 37-inch tires and 20x9 forged wheels. So you can see we have a peak horsepower right here of about 404 compared to straight down before we had 321. So we're seeing almost a 80 horsepower increase just from the turbos, which is definitely big. Now our torque numbers are pretty tremendous as well. You can see here, same thing, 3,700 RPMs. We've got 458 compared to 509. That's 50 foot-pounds of torque with the new turbos and tuning. As we carry on through the RPM range, we start seeing even more of an increase. We've got 474 compared to 398, 75 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels. And this carries all the way throughout to the end of our test. You can even see here, we've got 383 compared to 292. That's almost 100 foot-pounds of torque at the top end of our dyno testing. But you can see the meat of it here, showing that there was a substantial increase in horsepower and torque with the addition of the Garrett turbochargers and intercooler core. So now that you've seen the dyno results, let's take this thing for a drive.
So what exactly are you doing right now, Dan? Take those off first and foremost.
So here we are, got the Raptor, and we're stopped here in the middle of a safe area, and we're going to test out the Draggy. I'm sure everyone knows the Draggy, the best thing you get on Amazon. Basically measure your 0 to 60, 60 to 130, quarter mile, you can do all that stuff. So we've got our big turbos on here. We are going to do the Draggy test. So we'll hold this up and we'll measure our 0 to 60 here. All we gotta do is hit go and slam on the gas. Let's do this. All right, so we just finished our first 0 to 60. And now keep in mind, we do have the VR forged 20 by 9 inch wheels. They are one piece forged monoblocks, so they are light, but we have the Toyo fellow Raptor. He did it, good peace sign. We have the Toyo Open Country 37 inch tires on here, which are extremely heavy. We actually weighed one of these wheels, and the wheel and tire compound was 110 pounds. So with that, our first 0 to 60 run with the Draggy, 0 to 60, 6.81 seconds. 1,000 foot time, 13.53, and our 60 foot, 2.64. So let's see if we can improve that time. We'll do a couple more of these while we show you how the new Garrett turbochargers work. All right, 0 to 60, take 2. And drive. Still got my blinkers on. Those were not great results because between turning my blinkers off and revving it in neutral, we actually ran a 7.39. So that was no good. We need to get back to our tech team here and figure this out. Okay, here we go. One more 0 to 60. We're gonna rev it up just a little bit to get some preload there on the turbos and see if we can beat our time of 6.81 seconds in 0 to 60. Here we go. Or anything, but the rev is what makes the difference. 6.46 seconds, beat our time by almost 0.4 seconds compared to the other one. So that means that, like any other special vehicle, you want to get a good time, you got to have a driver that knows what they're doing. So now that you saw our 0 to 60 test that just shows, hey, this thing's fun to drive, let's see what it looks like on the outside.